What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time it is a short slate, and it's the best short slate of the season. It is Thanksgiving, and we're here to break down all three games for you. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Single game $1 million winner, and you saw him last week for the first time in a while. You haven't seen him on any short slate videos this season, but he's back now that all the builder updates have been completed. Everyone out there, all the viewers have been wanting him to get back on the video, and he's back from an undisclosed location. It's Jack. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, joining us from a hotel lobby, just to keep the entertaining locales going. And yeah, glad to be back. Glad to have all the builder work mostly behind us. And how many years in a row have we done this, Brian?
This is year number, what, 5, 6, 7 we've done a Thanksgiving video. It's become quite the tradition and one of the more popular videos that we do every season. So I'm glad you can make it, man. Happy Thanksgiving.
You as well. I hope someday we have a member out there that's savvy with video skills and that has too much time on their hands and they can make like a mashup of funny or just wrong quotes or something like that from all the times over the years.
Yeah, we've certainly had a lot of great ideas for Thanksgiving slates, but don't get us wrong, we've had some bad ideas too. So if any of you out there have video skills and want to go back and look through the channel, you're certainly welcome to. In this video for this year, we're going to try to give you as many good ideas as we can. So what we'll do is we'll go through the injury reports and notes for each of the 6 teams playing on Thanksgiving, and then we'll go through our favorite low-owned plays, the ones that will differentiate your lineups from the field in DFS contests on Thanksgiving, and then give you our other short slate strategies and how they apply to this particular 3-game slate. Just really quickly, Jack, you, for the people out there who haven't watched you a lot or are new this season, you've done a lot of great things in short slates, a lot of success. What do you think your key is? What makes you different than most DFS players that have given you success on short slates?
Well, I think it's working with you to come up with these rules that we do and then just implementing them. Like honestly, man, every time it's just been doing the things that we talk about here, whether it's low owned plays, mega stacking, leaving a little bit of salary. I don't think it's a magic thing, right? I think anyone can do it. Obviously, it takes some luck too, right? But yeah, I think it's just putting it to work.
And I do think I'll give you some additional credit beyond that. You are aggressive in your stances, and if you have a lean, you will play it pretty heavily. I know some of your short slate wins have come when you've gone 100% all in on one quarterback, or you've completely faded some popular players. So I don't want to take all the credit here. I think you've done a great job of doing that as well. And if you look in the DraftKings contest this year, for those of you who decide to play the $5, it's 594,000 entrants. If for some reason you decide to play that, Jack, this is the type of contest where you have to get extremely aggressive in your stances.
Yeah, that's a good point. Totally agree. Especially if you're trying to win large field, right? You got to take some stands. And yeah, there have been a lot of brave stands. Not all of them have been right, but to your point, when they're right, you have a shot at the huge prizes.
Yeah, and we'll get into it here in a second. We get a lot of people asking, how do I play 20 max? How do I play a few lineups? And the less lineups you play in the larger contests, you have to be more aggressive in your stances because you only have a certain amount of chances to be right. And if you are right, you want as many shots as that top prize as you can. And by being aggressive in your stances, that's the best way to do that. So Jack, let's go team by team here. And this is a DFS show, but for those of you out there who are betting, you can use a lot of these notes in your Thanksgiving parlays and props and pick 'em slips as well. So, Jack, your Packers are playing in the early 1 o'clock game against the Detroit Lions. We'll start with the Packers. Josh Jacobs is officially questionable, but there are reports today that he is expected to play after missing last week with that knee injury. So, he's good to go. Jaden Reed is questionable. We will know if he's activated by 4 p.m. Eastern today. We're recording this around midday on Wednesday, so we don't have definitive word just yet. They're typically pretty conservative with returning players from injury. I wouldn't be shocked to see him stay on the injured reserve for another week and return after 10 days to next week's game. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And their starting cornerback, Keyshawn Nixon, is questionable with the stinger. Those are very tricky to deal with. We probably won't know Nixon's status until Thursday morning. So Jacobs is questionable. He's expected back. Reed questionable. Just thoughts on the Green Bay team given these injuries and the returns.
Well, to your point about aggressive fades, I just 50% Dobbs. I mean, I watch every Packers game. He's okay. He's not really an explosive player. He's had a lot of drops. That one just sticks out to me, Brian. I think Christian Watson has burned Detroit in the past. Certainly, if Reed comes back, I would play him. I think we always talk about this in a high risk contest. If a guy plays, you just assume that they're out there, right? So if Reed did play, like, not a guy I would play in like a small field satellite contest or anything, but certainly good large field play. If he doesn't play, I mean, we've seen these receivers rotate a lot, so yeah, I don't know. And then, what are your thoughts on Jacobs? His ownership seems like a little low, maybe for the game script and the point total.
Yeah, it is interesting. You look at Dobbs, we have him as one of the highest projected receivers on the slate in terms of ownership, and I think that is just to get these other studs on the slate into people's lineups. Whereas Jacobs, he could have pushed and played last week, but he knows his body, and if he's good to go on Thursday, I would assume he's near 100%. Now they've cut his workload back a little bit, but I agree. If we got him at lower ownership on a slate with some decent running backs, we know he has multi-touchdown upside, so I do like that call.
I mean, sometimes to my detriment as a fan, Green Bay just insistent on running the ball into the ground every single week. So, I mean, he might get, with the red zone work and everything, like, definitely has a shot to lead this late in running back points.
Absolutely. If we go to the home team, the Detroit Lions, Khalif Raymond, their number 3 wide receiver, he is questionable. It looked like he had no chance of playing. Head coach Dan Campbell left the door open a little bit, but as of Wednesday morning, hadn't practiced. We haven't seen Wednesday's report just yet. His ankle is extremely stiff and sore. I would assume he is out. But also their tight end, Brock Wright, dealing with an injury as well. He had 2 DNPs to start the week. We'll see what Wednesday looks like. If he's out, that means they have a real set of guys playing tight end. Ross Dwelly, Anthony Ferkser, maybe call up somebody from the practice squad. I just assume this all means more 3 wide receiver sets. And Jack, if Khalif Raymond's out and Brock Wright's out, that means we'll see rookie Isaac Tesla in there, who, if you haven't watched a lot of games this year, he's a guy that makes big plays, catches touchdowns on limited targets. My question to you is, particularly for a 3-game slate, and whether or not you want to talk about Tesla in particular, but when you have a wide receiver 3 who we have projected for less than 5% ownership on a 3-gamer, what are your thoughts on getting those types of guys into your mass multi-entry lineups?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a large field play only. But I think you said it, that you have to be a little more strict about whether you play those kind of guys. Like on a 2-gamer, you're playing anyone that gets snaps. But like you said, he will get the opportunity, and he actually is a downfield threat player. So if this was like a slot receiver catching a bunch of short passes, I think we would probably lean no, especially on FanDuel, right? But if he catches a 50-yard touchdown on FanDuel at $4,500, he could be immediately optimal.
That is true. That is true. And again, at super low ownership, we don't need to get many guys into our lineup that are low owned, but we do want to get at least 1 or 2 depending on the contest size that we're playing. And if you have someone like Tesla who's super low owned, you can be a little bit chalkier with the rest of your lineup. Detroit also has some offensive line, defensive guys that they could be missing, could get him back. All look questionable. I would just say monitor the injury report and activations. They have some guys returning from injury reserve. We don't have full information just yet. You, the viewer, should go check it out once we get that official word Wednesday evening. All right, Jack. Anything else on this game before we move on to the afternoon game?
Nope, let's do it.
All right, Kansas City and Dallas. By the way, just really quickly, Jack, 3 great games on Thanksgiving. Normally, we're subjected to at least one terrible game. I think we should have 3 pretty good games.
Normally, we're subjected to 3 terrible quarterbacks and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And we actually have 6 playable quarterbacks on this slate. So thank you, NFL.
Based on this year, you could also lump Josh Allen into that terrible quarterback group, by the way. So
yeah, the 1 year we want him on one of these slates so we can fade him, he's like not on it.
I know, exactly. So, all right, Kansas City and Dallas. Kansas City, a lengthy injury report. Isaiah Pacheco returns, has missed the last couple of games with that injury. So he'll return. Kareem Hunt has been a workhorse in his absence. Saw 24 fantasy points from Kareem Hunt last week. Expect more of a 50-50 split. I would say Hunt has done a good enough job to maintain the lead role. They still have Brashard Smith there as well. So really interesting backfield split. Their tight end 2, Noah Gray, is out. Robert Tonyan becomes a tight end 2. That's probably more of a showdown play. I don't think you're playing either of those guys in the classic contest. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, they had ailments, but they will indeed play. The right guard, Trey Smith, is out. So maybe a little bit of a downgrade to the Kansas City offense. And then this will just keep this in the back of your mind for a second, both you, Jack, and the viewers. Their slot corner, safety, kind of a hybrid guy, Chris Rowland-Smith, is out in their defensive backfield. Before we get into that, Jack, Pacheco, 3-headed backfield, mostly 2-headed with Hunt and Pacheco. How are you feeling about a split backfield situation on a 3-game slate? How are you handling that?
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times over the years, especially on slates where the pricing is really tough, and it is on FanDuel. We have a lot of guys in like the 8K to 9K range. UT backup running backs is optimal. And so to me, like 64, I was looking at FanDuel, you can talk DraftKings pricing, but like 6,400 Hunt, 5,500 Pacheco. I mean, those are pretty affordable, and the ownership is there's a little bit there, but they are in that sort of sub 20% point. So I mean, that's the first place I look as. I think Brian potentially even small field plays as a way to kind of fit other guys in. Where are you going with this on DraftKings?
I think so too. Let's go to DraftKings. We see Hunt at 53, Pacheco at 5K. We look at the running back position as a whole. Gibbs 8,800, Derrick Henry 7,300, Jacobs 6,800. And if you get below Hunt and Pacheco, there aren't any full time guys at the running back position. Both those guys have higher expectations than say Montgomery, Keaton Mitchell, some of these other guys. So I get it. I understand why the ownership is there, but it's not outrageous. It's not such a play that Jack, we look at it and say, yeah, they help us fit guys in, but they're so outrageously owned that we don't want to go there. I think they're affordable enough in terms of their ownership that we don't have to go super heavy in one direction or the other.
Yeah, I agree. And the other question you want to ask when you're playing backup running backs is like, are there other players at other positions that can outscore the 8,500 running back in the slate? I mean, absolutely, right? Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, tons of guys that can outscore those expensive running backs. So that's the other reason why the backup running back type or the cheaper running backs have a better shot on this type of slate. There's some slates when the wide receivers are just all trash, and it's like there was like a Derrick Henry slate last year. Right? It's like there's no way anyone's going to outscore Derrick Henry, and sure enough, he scored like 50 points or something.
Yeah, so again, that is something to think about on short slates. You don't necessarily think about it on larger classic slates, but how likely is it for studs at other positions to outscore the stud at that one position? That'll let you know how much you can play the cheaper guys at that position. Now, moving on to Dallas, their left tackle Tyler Guyton is out with a high ankle sprain. Nate Thomas will sub in for him. And you may think, oh, left tackle's out. That could be bad news. But he left in the middle of last game, and Nate Thomas helped lead that 21-point comeback against the Eagles. So I'm not really sure. Just as a high level, Jack, you see something like that. Do we really want to downgrade the offense that much if we see the backup come in and play well in his absence last week?
No, and I mean, when you click to Dallas in the lineup builder,
I
the
know.
ownership is just low,
I know.
right?
I know.
And another thing we don't talk about every time, but when especially if you're doing mega stacking, but it applies here too, right? Predictability and where the ball is going is huge on these things because on a main slate, right? You only have to play those guys because like you're just not going to play teams if you don't know where the ball is going. On these short slates, though, every team doesn't have that, and like when we get to the later game, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. Dallas, like where the ball is going. It's Williams, Pickens, and Lamb, and then a little bit Ferguson, and those guys are all in the almost the low owned bucket, right?
It's so crazy to think about. So George Pickens, Devontae Turpin, they were limited in practice this week. They have no injury status. They're good to go. Pickens has been unbelievable this season for Dallas. On the defensive side of the ball, monitor their cornerback, Kalen Carson. That could help this game shoot out maybe a little more if he is out, if they're missing a starting corner. But Jack, I think the number one thing we have to talk about in this game, we have an underperforming wide receiver. It's really a trifecta. We have the underperforming status, the tag. We have a coaching comment, and we have the opposing defense missing a defensive backfield player in Chris Roland Wallace, and it's CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had some drops last week. He had some drops in week 1 of this year, and they asked Brian Schottenheimer about it after Tuesday's practice. Here's the exact quote, Jack, what they said about CeeDee Lamb. He said, he's got that look in his eye that he means business. He's ready to play. There will be plenty of balls going to 88 Thursday afternoon. And you look at his ownership, and he's not one of the highest owned players on the slate, and you could even say he's in the low owned bucket over on FanDuel.
Yeah, we have 13% on FanDuel. I mean, anytime you see a guy like that with the up receiver and the low ownership, just a core play, in my opinion. And, yeah, you just don't get opportunities like this to play a guy like that, even without the squeaky wheel that you just mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, huge leverage plan, Dallas. I mean, do you think? I mean, I know you typically build small field. Like how I ask this? How many lineups would you have to make for you to build the Dallas stack? Let's put it that way.
2, maybe 1. Like
There you go.
the
Okay.
builder is giving us a decent amount of Dallas, and we'll show the builder here and what the exposures are looking like in a second. But I think it's one of the best stacks on the slate, if not the best stack.
And if you notice too, I mean, it's not like we're leaning on a limb. Like the Vegas total is right there. It's in fact actually it's the highest on the at least on the one I'm looking at, it's at 52. So it's not
Meanwhile,
like we're telling you to stack a 40-point game here,
right,
right? I mean,
right. Meanwhile, everyone's stacking the other side of this game. They're playing Mahomes. Mahomes is one of the highest on quarterbacks. I think we just played the home team in Dallas. By the way, Jack, Dallas laughing stock of the world on defense the first 10 weeks of the season. They pick up Quinnen Williams. They get their defensive backs back. Pick up a linebacker. They're starting to play pretty well on defense, and I really don't think the average projection system has picked up on their improvement here in the last couple of weeks.
No, and I also, as you always say, like the opportunity trumps the defense, right? Like Dallas, the players we just talked about in Dallas have tremendous opportunity. And so, yes, Kansas City's defense can be formidable, but we'll talk about Kansas City now here, right? But it's just I guess we just did, but like it's a little less certain where the ball's going, especially at the running back spot, and they just spread the ball around. So yeah, Dallas looks great.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. All right, let's move on to Cincinnati and Baltimore, the late game, and we'll talk about how the timing of these games impact your lineups as well. So stick around to the strategy section here in a few minutes. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow returns. Big news on this slate, as does Jamar Chase, who returns from suspension, not injury. However, T. Higgins is out with his concussion that he sustained late in that game last week. It'll be Jamar Chase, wide receiver 1. And then after about 50 targets, it'll be Andre Yosivas and Mitchell Tinsley as wide receiver 2 and 3. Mike Gesicki is the starting tight end now. He returned. Samaje Perine returns. And Jack, this is an injury that, or at least a return from injury, that I think will go a little bit overlooked. You look around the industry, Chase Brown has pretty solid ownership, and his projections look pretty healthy. However, I don't think it's accounting for the fact that if P. Ryan returns, P. Ryan's going to take a good amount of snaps. In fact, they asked their offensive coordinator this week about P. Ryan returning. He said, yeah, we want to get it kind of like we had it in that Jets game. In that Jets game, Chase Brown only played 54% of the snaps. Samaje P. Ryan played 42%. That alone should send off alarm bells that the industry is probably overprojecting Chase Brown a little bit here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and especially again when you think about what we just talked about, the what other players can outscore at the price point. Like Chase Brown is not cheap, and you're bringing up strong evidence his workload's going to be limited. So the odds of him being outscored by all these other talented players on the slate is just really high. I mean, for 40% ownership, again, in the spirit of like if you're going to take aggressive stands, like I will consider a zero here on him. Certainly, if I was doing small field, but even for a lot of lineups too.
And on that note, if you're playing zero Chase Brown, you probably want a little more Samaje Perine. 4K on DraftKings. Perine on FanDuel is 4,600, and he's certainly going to be less than 10% owned, Jack. So that's a way. And we talk about minimizing the number of things we need to do to get right to win contests, but also if we're playing one angle, the rest of our portfolio should also back up that angle. And if we're playing less Chase Brown, that means we should probably play a little more Samaje Perine.
Yeah, and again, to that point about price point, like let's say Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb both score like 40 points, got to have them to win. There's just not going to be room for these 8,500 running backs. So that means you have to play some sort of 5K running back and then look no further than this guy who might see the field for half the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really sharp way to look at it. So, all right, and then Baltimore, the home team, they should get Rashad Bateman back. He'll return after missing 2 games. That would mean a decrease in snaps for DeAndre Hopkins and Tylan Wallace. Their safety, Kyle Hamilton, was upgraded. He should play after an injury scare late last week. And then another running back, cheaper situation to monitor. Justice Hill, their running back too, has a new neck injury. He didn't practice on Tuesday. We have not seen Wednesday's update just yet. I would think he's out if he didn't practice on Tuesday with a new neck injury. Keaton Mitchell would be the change of pace back, but also Rasheen Ali. This is probably more of a showdown play for Ali. Both he and Keaton Mitchell played 20% of the snaps in the last game that Justice Hill missed. But Jack, Keaton Mitchell almost in that Samaje Perine role. He won't see the snap share that Perine will see. But in a game that could shoot out, we have a really cheap running back who could see a handful of touches.
Yeah, I mean, and that's in that spirit. Where are you at with Derrick Henry on this? Is he just like an eat it match kind of play for you, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't feel too strongly about it. He hasn't been that great this year. And we have all these other running backs on this slate. We talk about Gibbs, Jacobs, Brown, Javonte, the Kansas City running backs, David Montgomery, Keaton Mitchell. Henry he hasn't looked like the typical Derrick Henry. Will I go out of my way to fade him? Probably not. But if I run the builder and I build lineups I'm underweight, I would certainly be okay with it.
Yeah, and then I think the other spot that sticks out to me is what do you think about this tight end room for Baltimore? Obviously, I think we're seeing both Andrews and even likely getting ownership here.
Yeah, so Cincinnati has been historically bad against the tight end. If you look at any chart that graphs tight end defense, Cincinnati is basically off the screen up and to the right of how bad they've been at defending tight ends. DFS players are going to flock to that, and we see Andrews with a ton of ownership, and even Likely, who sees the field a lot at 2,600 on DraftKings, he's going to get ownership as well. The issue is tight ends kind of gross on this slate. We have Ferguson, who's the most expensive, but he's been underproducing. Kelsey is washed in dust. Andrews and Likely in a great matchup. Gesicki, who is a pass-catching tight end. I don't mind him either. But then we have the Detroit tight end room, who's basically a zero receiving, and then your boy Luke Musgrave for Green Bay hasn't done much in the absence of Tucker Kraft. So I get it. People have to play someone. Why not play the two guys in the best matchup? I don't know if that's a spot I really want to get away from here. But again, you look at that kind of ownership, Jack. Maybe you're thinking, can they really do this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, to me, you just made a good case for like you want to eat some chalk on these slates. It seems like a pretty good place to just eat it, right? The other tight ends on the slate are awful. Kelsey's a lot more expensive. It seems like it's basically Kelsey or one of these guys for the most part.
Yeah, and again, I don't mind Jake Ferguson either if we're stacking Dallas and we're playing mega stacks
Yep.
from that game. So, but either way, I don't think this is the position to get too cute, right? There's no real
And,
standout alternatives.
and I think you get asked this question a lot in the Discord, so we can spend a minute on it. Double tight end lineups, I think probably definitely in play here, right? Even with these kind of weaker guys, especially if you're going to play Likely as kind of a tight end too, just to play studs.
Yeah, again, we always tell people don't really play tight ends in the flex on classic slates. That goes out the window on short slates. A lot of times we need the salary, especially on a slate like this, Jack. We have so many studs. I think you almost have to in some lineups, and especially small field. You have to play maybe two tight ends to fit in an extra stud. I don't mind it as much. I will allow it. I won't force it. We'll let the builder do what it does and let us know.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on now and let's talk about all the low owned plays on this slate. Let's go back to DraftKings here. And we'll go position by position, low owned plays, and we'll talk about our favorite low owned plays. And this is one of the strategies you can use to get different on short slates. One of the strategies that Jack uses all the time in his short slate wins. And Jack, I would go as far to say that this is the easiest and probably the best way to get different. There's mega stacking, there is late swapping, there's leaving salary on the table. But when all else fails, your first go-to move should be just trying to find low owned players. And we actually have a good collection of guys on this slate.
Yeah, and the three things we always talk about, like you said, low owned plays, leave salary, mega stacking. Should be clear for the viewers. Like low owned plays is the number one and the number two on this slate. I think even large field using all the salary makes sense here. There's enough low owned plays that you don't need to leave salary to get unique. And mega stacking, I think when it makes sense, you can do it, right, Brian? But like we're not going out of our way to force 4-man stacks here to bring backs every time.
No, and we'll show the builder here in a second after we talk about the low owned plays to really highlight that fact. So if we look at the quarterback position, it's going to be Lamar Jackson, who has been outright terrible since returning from his injury, and Patrick Mahomes, who we've talked about, as the highest owned guys, which means we have Prescott and Burrow is in that next group. They're technically low owned. They're not super low owned, 10 to 15%, 10 to 20%, depending on the contest. And then we have the real low owned guys in Love and Goff here. So I think, Jack, you and I both agree that Prescott and Dallas stacks are the easy answer here. But any love for Love or Goff on a slate like this?
I mean, I think for 150 max, I'm definitely playing all 6 quarterbacks. And we've seen enough shenanigans with quarterbacks over the year to know that any quarterback can win. Price is very tough, as we said. Goff, even though he's like maybe the weakest and the most run heavy, he has a very predictable target tree with St. Brown. So like, yeah, I think I would not be going 0 for 150 lineups. And yeah, I think to your point, Dallas is probably the place to start as far as the lower ownership.
I think so too. And remember, never forget, I know it's been a while, Jack, but we have the DeVito rule. And none of these guys are close to Tommy DeVito.
No, the DeVito rule will never be topped.
For those who don't know, the DeVito rule is any quarterback can win a short slate. And we sat on this video a couple of years ago and said, can Tommy DeVito really be optimal? And I think on this video, we said he probably can't. I think this is the one situation we could leave a quarterback out of our player pool. Guess what? Tommy DeVito was optimal. And ever since then, we've had the DeVito rule. Any quarterback can be optimal on a short slate. So yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Brian, can JJ McCarthy be optimal? Is that if he was ever on a short slate?
Should it be called the JJ McCarthy rule now? Maybe so.
Well, we'll see if we get him. We'll see if we get him on one.
Dude, at the rate he's going, he'll never appear on a short slate ever. So, all right, running back. We have the Kansas City guys as low owned. We have Pacheco. We have Kareem Hunt. We have David Montgomery. So kind of these running back two guys. Samaje P. Ryan, Keaton Mitchell. All the other normal running backs, Jack, Jameer Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, Javonte Williams, they're high owned, as they should be on a slate like this. So we've kind of talked about this position a little bit, but all these guys seem like, I would say, pretty good bets that one of these guys are going to enter the optimal lineup. Which one it's going to be, I don't know. It's kind of tough. I would push for Kareem Hunt or Samaje P. Ryan, but you're making 150. I think you're including all these guys.
Yep, absolutely. Easy.
No, easy. That's it. Running back, easy. Do you have a favorite, by the way, of the studs? Gibbs, Henry, Jacobs, Chase Brown. I think you and I both talked about the Chase Brown scenario. Jacobs maybe returning from injury at lower ownership. He seems like the best leverage play of the studs. And Gibbs seems like a eat it and pray he doesn't destroy you if you fade him type of play.
I think I don't have a favorite, but Gibbs and Henry seem to me the one that like don't lose to them. Like just play some and take your licks.
Yeah, I think so too. Really, these types of guys, especially like Gibbs, who has legitimate 60-point upside, as we saw last week, you don't want them to ruin your Thanksgiving, especially in the early game. And he busts off a couple early touchdown runs, and you get the rest of the day to look at your terrible lineups. You don't want that. So, all right, wide receiver, low owned on FanDuel is CeeDee Lamb. And Jack, why is he low owned on FanDuel compared to DraftKings? It's the pricing, right? You look at his price on FanDuel, 8,700. We get the discount over on DraftKings. That's the big reason. So for people playing both sites, they may wonder how is Lamb lower owned on one site than the other. The pricing is a big factor.
Yeah, 13% is just outrageous. What else do we got here? Bateman, Pickens is even only 20. Jameson Williams, Xavier Worthy, especially maybe as a low owned bring back to Dallas. Are you touching the secondary Bengals guys at all?
I think I would only include them in stacks. I mean, I could see Yossi. He's a legitimate player, and if he gets enough targets, I could consider playing him outside of a stack because he's cheap enough. Tinsley definitely only using him in stacks. Which, by the way, we should talk about cheaper wide receiver threes on the slate, like Tesla, like Tinsley. I think maybe those are the only guys. But we also have like Dontavian Wicks. We have Hollywood Brown. There are enough guys here that you could probably play them outside of stacks. I don't know. What do you think? Because typically you're playing everybody in this type of situation in your player pool and not just including them in stacks, right? I guess the question for people is, do we really only want to include those guys if that game environment goes off? But on a slate with so many studs, maybe a random guy from a different game who's 4,500 and scores a few points is optimal.
Yeah, I mean, well, reading your body language there, you don't look very excited about them. So I'm gonna lean. I'm gonna lean probably not. But also, like we talked about, like if a cheap running back is optimal, that means the stud receivers went off. If a cheap receiver is optimal, maybe more likely the stud running backs went off. I think we've generally made a case more for the elite receivers on this slate. We've pointed out cheaper running backs with a lot of opportunity. So that would lean you towards maybe a little bit less of these kind of trashy, cheap receivers, I would think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I think we talked it out. So that seems right to me. And then at tight end, we have Jake Ferguson. Very rarely do you see the most expensive tight end on a slate be unpopular, especially on a short slate. We have the Detroit tight end situation, which, as a reminder, Brock Wright, we don't expect to play. It should be Ross Dwelly. We'll try to read through the beat reporters' notes and see if there's maybe Dwelly gets sleeped by Ferkser or someone from the practice squad, or if it's a complete avoid. Let's monitor the Detroit Titans situation. Either way, all those guys will be super low owned. And then Isaiah Likely, while he'll be extremely popular on, well, not extremely, but popular on DraftKings, likely won't be as popular on FanDuel as well. So to me, it's just Ferguson. We know he has multi-touchdown upside. He hasn't showed it the last few games, but that seems like an easy pivot if that's the one position you're taking a stand on.
Especially, I mean, same price as Kelsey. Kelsey's obviously a great Hall of Fame player, but he tends to disappear sometimes in regular season games. So, like, would it shock anyone if he had like 3 catches for 20 yards? Like, no. And yeah, Ferguson is a multi-touchdown upside guy. So, and yeah, likely you make a good point. We see this a lot where punt will be really popular on DraftKings and like way too low owned on FanDuel. Based on the scoring and the pricing, it makes sense that they're somewhat lower owned, but like he's a sub 10% play on FanDuel. 4,800 is very cheap. I mean, he could easily outscore some of the guys in that price range.
Absolutely. Even in especially on a slate where the tight end's not that strong, I could see a solo tight end lineup would just likely be optimal, right? He's not just a guy that you can play as a flex play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great way to say it.
Cool. Okay. All right, let's move on to mega stacking. Just a couple more notes here in this video before we get out of here. Mega stacking, the idea is that of the 3 games, you pick one that shoots out. you have 5, 6, 7 guys from that one game. And if you get all the production from those guys, you have the one piece from the other couple of games that mix into the optimal lineup. Mega stacking it's almost non-negotiable on 2 game slates. 3 game slates, it's still there primarily. And I will pull up the lineup builder here so you guys can see this. I ran this earlier, and this is for DraftKings, and I'll full screen here so you guys can see this. And Jack ran it on FanDuel on his side, and we'll talk about it here. I basically ran this with very minimal rules in place. For those who don't have a membership, OccupyFantasy.com/membership, you get access to our lineup builder. Jack and I went through all the new updates last week here on the channel, so make sure you go watch that after this video if you haven't already. So very minimal short slate rules here, Jack. And what I noticed was that the builder isn't forcing very many 4-man stacks. It's forcing a good amount of 3-man stacks, so quarterback plus 2 pass catchers or 2 teammates. But it's equally giving us 2 opponents for most games. The one difference there being Green Bay more 3x1s than 3x2s. So I look at this and it's telling us that we don't necessarily have to 4-man stack. We should allow it and do it when it makes sense. But I think a 3-2 stack looks like the best stack for most of the game environments.
Yeah, in fact, FanDuel Builder, by far the number one stack it returned back was Baltimore 3x2.
Interesting 3x2. And yeah, that's what we get mostly here for DraftKings as well. But the other eye opener here, Jack, is again, we haven't referenced the model really in this entire video. We were talking about ownership and subjective data. Dallas is the second most used stack in our lineup builder this week. Just really adds on to the fact that we really should be stacking them this week.
Yep. I mean, for all those reasons. And I think, that game looks like a good, I might say mega stack, not like 5x3 or something. But if you're going to 4-stack a team, I mean, again, you know where the ball's going with Dallas. You could play one of the receivers, Ferguson, Javonte Williams, with, one of the running backs or Pacheco or, Worthy or Rice. So like, I think, when a game is less chalky too, right, you don't have to be perfect if it goes off. So like, you don't necessarily need to be perfect with every single one of those players because they're all pretty low owned.
Yeah, and again, you guys can you can see some of the lineups that the builder built here on screen. Again, very minimal rules. Normally, we're building a lot more rules into this. Really, just wanted to showcase what the builder is thinking in terms of mega stacks. Just a reminder that 4 is the maximum on FanDuel, but you can go up to 5, 6 on DraftKings. We've seen 6-mans win on 3-game slates before. That was a playoff slate. Jack, I think just because of the number of studs here and how good all of these games are, I can maybe see getting away with a 5-man stack. I don't think you should be 6-man stacking at all. But even 5-man seems pretty extreme because it's not like we have a lot of guys from each of these games that we want to play in the same lineup. I think 4 is probably the max.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati could make sense as a 4-man just because you've got like one of those 2 secondary receivers and P. Ryan and Chase, right? Like I could definitely see a lineup like that working. Yeah, I think for the viewers, you can start a build if you're building by hand with a single build or something with like a 3x1 and then just see how it goes, right? And if you end up in a situation where like the last guy you're clicking in is the 4th of your team or the second opponent, like don't be afraid to do it. It's still very good on the slate, but you don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's a really good way to talk about it as well. All right, let's go back to DraftKings here. We mentioned salary briefly. We're not looking to get different by leaving salary on the table. In my notes here, I have 500 to 700 maximum left over in small field, maybe 1,500 in large field. Do you feel strongly one way or the other, leaving less or leaving more? Again, as a maximum, not a number that you should target. I think you can be pretty close to the salary ceiling here and be okay as long as you're stacking in and playing the right number of low-owned players.
No, honestly, I would probably even start a 150 build with like 59.5 to 60K on FanDuel and just see what happens. Like if I start running out of lineups or something, maybe I'll go down. And like we always tell people that the way to do this is look at the bad players and the weakest players in your lineups and say like, can this guy outscore a guy that you could swap to, right? And if the answer is like never, then you don't want to have like P. Ryan in a lineup where you could swap it to Derrick Henry. That's an extreme example, but just to show people that's the kind of way you should view it if you're leaving some salary.
Yeah, and again, just to be clear, if you're using an optimizer simulator tool, our lineup builder, if you're leaving salary range wide open, those types of lineups will be popular or will be possible, right? So it's on you the user to go in, double check after the fact. Let's make sure all of these lineups make sense. So really, it's a function. Even our builder, Jack, it's a function of what you're inputting, the rules and the salary range, or what type of lineups come out. And maybe it spits out that as one or two lineups, and you just go ahead, hand build it or hand edit it and get that lineup out of there.
Yep. And fortunately for folks, you don't have to overthink the salary too much on the slate, like you said.
Absolutely. All right. The final thing we need to discuss on a short slate, on a Thanksgiving slate, especially with family around, is late swapping. So we have the game at 1, we have the game at 4:30, we have the game at 8:20. So we should have some time in between each game. Jack, map it out for us. What is your short slate late swapping strategy going to look like tomorrow? Because we don't have as much information after the first game, and we have a whole bunch of information after the second game. And I know you historically, even on Thanksgiving specifically, you won a bunch of money that one year on Thanksgiving, making an important late swap before the 8 o'clock game. So, as someone who has been successful in this arena, for viewers out there who are either hand building or using a builder that have a lot of lineups or even just a couple of lineups, what does the strategy look like for late swapping on Thanksgiving?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is like figuring out what you want out of the contest, right? Like for you and me, we're trying to win, so we want to take a lot of risk. So what you want to do really is at the end of the second, I mean, I think at the end of the second game is really when it makes sense. Yeah, that first game, like you can look a little bit, but there's so many unknowns, it's tough. The end of the second game or toward the end, you can look and say, how far away am I from winning? How much minutes do I have? And then look for other lineups above you that like kind of look the same, have more or less minutes, right? And then if you have the optimal lineup, like if you have like the highest score with say two players left and no one else above you has two players, you want to play the most chalky optimal guys you can in that lineup. And then the reverse is true if you find another person that's like 5 points ahead of you with the same two positions open, the same amount of salary remaining, and they could have those two players. You just assume that you're blocked, and then again that comes down to like, what are you trying to do? Are you just trying to cash? Are you trying to get top five, or are you trying to win? And then if you're trying to win, then you have to try to swap to something alternative. You helped me with that. That one year I had Devontae Adams in a lineup. He was going to be like super chalky. Found people that blocked me, swapped to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had a huge game, and I won a bunch of money. So it can really make a huge difference. And Brian, we know the field just doesn't do it at all enough, especially on a holiday.
Yeah, and all the other tools out there, and this is including ours as well, it doesn't take into account the specific contest when swapping. It mostly just swaps to re-optimize your lineups based on new projections. So when you look at it through your own eyes and say, this is what's ahead of me in this specific contest, and this is what I need to do, you making that dedicated decision is it just offers an incredible amount of expected value. The Aaron Jones example you brought up is a big one. And people may say, well, I have two guys left. Why is it not already the optimal lineup? Because if you're building a bunch of lineups in mass multi-entry, you're getting different combinations, different variations, different diversification. So your best lineup with two players left may not be the best lineup remaining for that lineup. So you go in and swap to the two actual best players if no one's blocking you, because you might have two lower owned guys, or you might have two lower projected guys just because of the diversification and trying to get your exposures correct within that lineup set. So we can't stress it enough, Jack, how important it is. And believe me, you made some bad swaps before. Not bad in the sense that you didn't know what to do, but bad as it didn't work out. But if you're looking to win, you actually have to make those swaps.
Yeah, and I will say, thinking about it too, I think the exception to the first game, given the low ownership of those quarterbacks, if you stack Goff or Love and it just goes nuclear, you should find those lineups and just probably swap to very chalky like one-offs for the second two games, because that stack's going to be super low owned. So I think there is an exception there. Again, it's going to be a little harder with so many unknowns, but there's if the first game was super chalky, it probably wouldn't be worth it. But
Yes, that is an important thing. The ownership of guys who have already played is extremely important. So a lot of this is to factor in. And because we're degenerates, at least I will be, we'll be in Discord most of the day. So if you have late swap questions on Thanksgiving, hop in our Discord, ask us. Give us some time though. Don't be asking questions 1 minute before the next game starts. We have our own lineups to build as well. So that'll do it for this video. Again, make sure you check out the video Jack and I did last week showcasing the new features in the OccupyFantasy.com lineup builder. We have some old videos up here as well if you want to go back and watch last year's Thanksgiving, get some more ideas maybe we missed in this year's video. The model's already up and running with projected ownership. The builder's up and running. Any questions you have, Drop a comment below this video, whether it's about players, stacking, strategy. Drop the question below in this video. I'll be monitoring the channel through Thanksgiving, so we'll certainly get back to you with any of those questions. Jack, final thoughts, man.
No, just I'm really excited for this one. I think I'm, hopeful if we have a good results, some good screenshots tomorrow, and of course, make sure to have fun, spend time with your family. Don't be a total degenerate with late swapping. Just casually peek at your phone a little bit during pie time.
Absolutely terrible advice. Time your bathroom breaks when needed before the next game starts, and or just sneak off. Go for that walk at the right time to get those swaps in. So for Jack, I'm Brian. Thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate you as always. Good luck and happy Thanksgiving.